And welcome back to the Financially Simple Experience. Friends, today, my goodness, today is a special episode for me. It's an episode that I had no idea that I would ever record. If you'd asked me, Justin, will you ever record this episode years ago, I'd have said, yeah, right. But today is the 500th episode of the Financially Simple Experience. 500. I can't believe I've recorded 500 episodes talking into a microphone over the last many years. Now, some of you have been listening to the podcast since the early days. You tell me about it. Oh man, this is a crown in heaven for you, because I don't know how if I can listen to myself 15, 20 minutes, 500 times. I'm in business meetings sometimes and somebody will say, "What do you think?" And I'll laugh because as somebody's recorded hundreds of hours of content, it's like everything I think ends up coming into this microphone. As one of my business advisors one time told me, "Son, give away 99.99% of your knowledge. If you do, it'll come back bountifully to you." So today, friends, I want to talk about what I've learned by recording 500 episodes of a podcast. Now, let's set the stage. We've accomplished a lot of things over the last 500 episodes. We started this podcast, Financially Simple, as a way to educate business owners, take very complex matters that all of us deal with day in, day out, and try to break it down as simple as possible. You know, I'm just an old country boy. I am. I was born and raised on a dirt road in South Georgia, and candidly, if you really want to know the truth, I live on a gravel road in East Tennessee now. I've had several of my colleagues in a much larger company come to my, what we call the farm in East Tennessee, and it's in the sticks. It's in the sticks. And they're like, "Dude, you are so country." In fact, the CEO of my company told me, he said, "Son, you're as country as a turnip green." I'm like, "I'm just impressed you know what a turnip green is." So I'm just an old country boy. But I had this dream. That, man, is there a way that we can simplify finance? Is there a way that we can simplify business for us busy business owners, the business owners who have the keys to the economic engine of our society? Is there a way that we can speak to them? So we've written blogs. We have a YouTube channel with over 10,000 subscribers. We had a period of time there where we had some other countries pirate our subscriber list, and they moved it way up to like 75,000, and then it began falling down. So we legitimately have 10,000 subscribers plus on our YouTube channel. The podcast has reached top rankings in many categories. In the early days, I can remember saying, "Hey, we're the number one business podcast in this country." And it would be a country somewhere I'd never heard of. But nonetheless, we've impacted through many podcasts. Now, today's the 500th. I had the opportunity to do webinars and seminars for financial advisors who are my peeps. Remember, I was a financial advisor who owned a business, and growing that alongside so many of my colleagues has been a fun journey, especially as we share our stories. I share mine through speaking in this microphone. I've also done webinars and seminars for business owners through COVID. I did so many webinars and so many virtual seminars for business owners on how we could survive COVID, how we can excel through COVID. We've developed online courses. I've written 2 books. This is the guy, right? This is the guy who the English teacher, whenever I came to a junior college in my early days, said, "You'll never amount to anything. You can't spell anything." And I can't, friends. I have a very hard time spelling. But one of our books reached number 1 on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. To see my name ahead of some political figures, ahead of some prominent authors, ahead of some amazing pundits, to see little old Justin Goodbread's name above those was, man, an unbelievable event. One of our books reached, I think it was 54 or 56 on the USA Today bestsellers list. Both books were Amazon bestsellers. One of our books was published in a different language. This is a kid who grew up on the dirt road, right? I had the opportunity to contribute for Forbes. I write for Forbes. I write for Kiplinger. I've been featured on CNBC, Yahoo Finance, and many other publications. I've reached Investopedia's top 100 most influential advisors 5 years. That's humbling. In Tennessee, I was a top 40 under 40. In 2022, I received Exit Planner of the Year. That blew my mind. There were so many exit planners globally. And yet, little country boy, lives on a dirt road, drives a tractor, drives a Ford truck, and says, y'all, reach Exit Planner of the Year status. Received Leader of the Year in the Exit Planning Institute. But most of all, the numbers of business owners that I've had the opportunity, the privilege to speak to for the last many, many years because of this podcast, it has been humbling. So what have I learned? What have I learned? The first thing I've learned is you don't have to be perfect or proficient before you launch an idea. You just have to be passionate. I can remember thinking about the podcasting world in the infancy. It was about 2016. And I knew that I love talking. I love teaching. I like to teach. I love to impact people. That's my life word, is impact. I love to see people grasp a concept and watch their lights glimmer. I understand why teachers get so energized working with students and seeing their light bulbs click on. But in my own perfection, I delayed for years because I wanted to research. I wanted to understand what exactly is a podcast. How exactly do you use it? And I was coming back from Texas, and I just met with one of my clients. And at that point, I was trying to figure out this whole game of business development for the financial advisory space. I'd already sold a financial advisory practice, but yet it was broken. And I knew business, but I was trying to figure out how to deal with compliance and things of that nature. And I met with the client, and I have received a copy of a book by Gary Vaynerchuk, which, by the way, if you know Gary, I want to meet him. That man impacted my life through his mediums in a positive manner. One day, I hope I have the opportunity just to shake his hand, give him a hug, and say thank you. But I remember coming back, and he had a book called Crushing It. And I was reading this. And as I'm reading his book in the airport, the Dallas airport, I'm like, why can't I do this? I can do it. Let's go. And in my person, I'm like, but you don't know all the answers. But I was passionate. I can remember walking in the house that evening and saying, Emily, we're going to make a change. And like my wife does, she rolled her eyes and said, now what? And I told her what I was reading, and she said, this will fizzle out. I'm like, perhaps, but I want to try it. And so we launched the Financially Simple Experience. So friends, we don't have to be perfect or proficient. We just have to be passionate. And our passion is often seen and will take us far greater and far farther than I would ever imagine in my own life. The second thing I learned is you've got to hire people smarter than you. That's easy for me to say. Oftentimes, I will say things like, I'm dumb as a box of rocks. And the reality is that is a true statement in many areas. If you were to ask me to diagnose someone medically, I wouldn't have an idea how to do that. Thank God we have very, very proficient and people who have studied the human body who can help us whenever we need them. If you were to say, hey, Justin, I need you to do some welding, I've never done it. Couldn't do it. If you were to ask me to fly an airplane, wouldn't know how to do it. There are certain things that I'm very good at. I'm good at talking into a microphone, I think. I'm good at strategy. I'm good at taking a concept, researching it, applying it, and then trying to simplify it for somebody else to use. But to set up a podcast, to know how to make what I'm saying in this microphone reach your ears, I have no idea. No idea. So I learned that I had to hire people who were smarter than me in the areas of my inefficiencies or my ineptitude or my ignorance. People that had the knowledge that could take what I was trying to articulate and then could apply it and launch it. I say, well, Justin, that's common sense. You're right. It is. It is. But for me, it was hard. I'm a very prideful person. The older I get, the more I see that as a weakness. Through this podcast, I've learned that by hiring people to come alongside you and fill in our ineptitudes, our areas of weakness, we actually prove how strong we really are. We actually prove that, hey, we are vulnerable and others can help us. In my early days of the podcast, as I was doing research, I came across this old African proverb that says, go fast, go alone, go far, go together. And it was with that proverb that when it hit my head as I was studying a particular podcast, I knew that I had to have help. My goodness, friends, I can remember coming back from that trip in Texas and telling my wife, I'm going to hire somebody. This person is going to cost me more money than we can afford. This person is probably going to make more money than us in the early days. Then this person told me that they needed a laptop that was going to cost $4,700. Now, the way I thought about it was $4,700 for this laptop. I can buy a four-wheeler and play on the farm for $4,700. But trusting the person that I had hired, somebody who was very intelligent in this area, somebody that I have a debt of gratitude toward, this individual crafted what I was trying to do and moved us into the direction that where we are today. So I learned real quick that I've got to hire people and then let them go. Let them do what they're good at. Another thing that I've often heard, but I never experienced until this podcast bloomed and morphed to where it is today, is success comes from perseverance, not only from the short-term outcomes. I grew up in the country, and we had a little boat. I can remember one time that I wanted to go fishing. I've shared the story somewhere on the podcast. I wanted to go fishing. And the trolling motor, the motor that you put on the back of the boat, and the battery was in my dad's truck at his work. But yeah, I wanted to go fishing. So my mom said, figure it out. So what do? My brother and I grabbed some shovels, and we used a shovel to paddle our boat in the pond so we could go fishing. And on that day, I caught the biggest soft-shelled turtle I've ever seen in my life, still to this day. So it's a turtle whose shell is soft, is flexible. They get in the mud, and they're ambush predator, then they can ambush the fish. Whenever we caught this thing, its head came up, and I swear it was 9 inches across. It was huge. I've never seen a freshwater turtle this big since then. I saw a sea turtle much larger, but never a soft-shelled turtle. I wouldn't have had that experience had I not figured out, hey, look, success comes from perseverance. See, if I'd given up saying, I want to go fishing, but I can't because the battery and the trolling motor's in the dad's truck at the Port Authority where he worked in South Georgia, I would have given up. But yet, we persevered. And as we row the boat forward, another thing that we can glean from this is as I push backwards on the oar, or in this case the shovel, to drive the boat forward, with every stroke backwards, I would get a little bit of movement forward because of perseverance. So many times we as business owners, we act as firecrackers. We have a little bit of ADHD. I heard something the other day that Dave Ramsey said. I don't know if it's exactly accurate, but he was on stage at an entrepreneur leadership event, and he made this statement. He said, if you have ADHD, you're 350 or 300% more likely to become an entrepreneur than anybody else, end quote. I don't know if that's true, but one thing I do know is that we as entrepreneurs often have this shiny object syndrome that we act like a firecracker. We fizzle and then we pop, and then we go on to something else, and we fizzle and we pop. Friends, I think the success that we've seen through the podcast proves that it's not a immediate result many times. It's like a wildfire. Have you ever seen a wildfire in action? Yeah, we watch it on TV, and we see the out-of-control wildfires that burn so many people's homes, especially in the western United States, and just great devastation. A couple of years back, I was hunting with my brother up in the Idaho mountains, and during that event, a wildfire broken out because of a lightning storm, and we could literally see a wildfire across the ridges. We actually rode horses very, very close to wildfire as we were in the mountains. And what we learned is not all wildfires are out of control. What they do is they start at one location and they slowly burn many times, as long as the winds, not like gale force winds, they'll burn from the center out in multiple directions, almost 360 degrees. See, success moves very similar to a wildfire. We just have to realize that it's perseverance. It's a podcast once a week for many years, and yet the outcome is there. Whereas many times we as entrepreneurs, we want shiny object syndrome, which is why I said early on, if you would have asked me when I started this, if we were going to have 500 episodes, I would say, no, there's no way. I'm not doing this for 500 episodes. One of my dear friends, his name is Dan. I've had him on the podcast before. We make this statement. He would say, time exposes you for who you are. You see, what I've learned in this podcast is there's some validity and there's some traction that comes from a consistent message over a long period of time. Not chasing the rabbit, not having this firecracker type result where you go out and you hit everything all at one time and you're done. It's consistency. Consistency. I can remember when I first started learning how to play the piano. I would come in and I would practice for 1 hour and my mom would fuss at me. She'd say, you need to have 30 minutes a day, every day, practice. Why every day, Mom? 30 minutes a day, every day. My piano teacher, Miss Jean Day, would often ask, how many times you practice this week? She didn't ask how long. She said, how many times? And what they were teaching me in the early days was consistency or discipline. Whenever I first started the podcast, I can remember writing out the first 25 episodes because I had read somewhere in a book that if you had your first 25 episodes mattered the most. And if you don't get through 25, you're not going to get to 50. If you don't get through 50, you're not going to get to 100. Obviously, that makes sense. So I remember recording those podcasts, and I recorded a podcast every day for the first 45 days because I want to be above average. I'm not an average person, right? So I can remember sitting there and recording this podcast. And after those 45 days, I came home and I told my wife, well, that's it. Now we're going to get rich because of podcasting. And I can remember coming back to the office and our team that I'd hired on Leap of Faith, they said, here's your episodes if we want you to record these next 45 episodes. And I went, what? More? And I learned a valuable lesson that consistency of message over a long period of time yields the results that we often need. Not that we want, that we often need. In my spiritual life, a pastor that I once had said, God is preparing you for what he's prepared for you. In other words, there's something out in front of you that you have no idea yet what it is, friends. And this is applicable to you as well. There is something in front of you that you have no idea what it is. And the very actions that you're taking today are preparing you for that particular event. Another lesson that I learned was don't be afraid to invest in uncertainty. My mom says it this way. She says, son, your entire life, you've lived on the fringe, your entire life. And she would give me examples. She would say, you were always the one who wanted to be in the front of the roller coaster or the back of the roller coaster, never in the middle. You were the one who wanted to have the shiny shoes on the soccer field, not the white ones, but the green ones or the red ones. You wanted to have that fringe movement. If someone said you couldn't learn something, you were going to prove them wrong, which is how I entered this financial world that I'm in. When I was reading Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crushing It, and I had this prompting that said, well, why won't you do this? Coming back to Tennessee and learning how much it was going to cost me to hire somebody to help me. Oh my goodness. And then finding out again, the $4,700 laptop. Oh my goodness. But I can remember sitting at home with Emily through a very hard time saying, Emily, I have to do this. Well, Justin, what's it going to yield? I don't know. I have to do it though. If I don't do this, then I feel like I'm going to be missing something. Justin, that individual will make more money than we make. Emily, I know. This is going to cost more than what you're talking about. This is going to cost 6 figures. And we're not making anywhere near that in order for you to do this. You're talking about our kids' college. I know, Emily. I know. But Emily, I have to do this. And like she always has done, all right, I'm with you. I don't know what prompting you have in your life right now. Don't be afraid to invest in a dream. I was talking with a business owner not too long ago, and he said, I would so love to just walk away from this business and do this. And I went, why don't you? And he just looked at me like, how dare you say that to me? I said, well, why don't you do that? Why don't you quit the business and go do your dream? Well, Justin, that's inappropriate. That's not professional. I said, who cares? If this is truly your dream, man, let's chase our dreams. Life's too short. Let me ask you, friends, if you were giving a point here, don't be afraid to invest in uncertainty. What is it that's holding you back? What fear is causing you to be stagnant? I can remember my youth leader, Kirk Branch. We were riding one day to an event, and he looked out across the cow pasture in South Georgia, and there was this pond, this farm pond that was green. It wasn't because of grass, it was because of algae. In other words, the stagnant water had caused a particular algae called duckweed to grow in it, and it just looked green and it stunk. And he made this statement to me, and I'll never forget it. He goes, hey guys, look, education without application leads to stagnation. And he pointed at that pond. He goes, the reason why that pond is stagnant, stinks, is because it doesn't have new water. It doesn't have new life. There's someone that's not moving. And several of you are getting education, but you're not applying it. And your life will be just like that pond, will be stagnant. So what are you afraid to invest in? Another thing I learned is authenticity. In my early days, in my professional career, I had a very hard time going through a legal battle. I've alluded to that many times on the podcast. It's because of some legal documents that we had to sign, non-disclosure, things of that nature. I can't really talk about it. But I remember going through a legal battle, and a priest, now this is big for me, okay? I'm just being a little bit vulnerable today through the microphone. I was raised in a particular denomination, and it wasn't that had a priest. We had a pastor versus a priest. And I'd never met with a priest before, but yet this priest became a client of mine, a Catholic priest. Dear man, unbelievable man. He ended up being pivotal in the development of my life. I ended up falling in love with this man. This man became a mentor to me, and I speak with him frequently. As we were talking about life and different things, he challenged me in a way that no one else had ever challenged me before. He said, son, live your life openly. Now, nothing nefarious there, nothing that would maybe have any type of connotation. What he was referring to is you've got to be authentic. If you like turnip greens or like to paddle a boat and catch soft-shelled turtles, and you have this funny accent because you're from South Georgia and live in the hills of East Tennessee, be you. If you want to wear blue jeans and untuck your shirt, be you. If you don't care about NASCAR, be you. If you like Chopin and Bach and Mozart, which I do, be you. Be authentic and live it out. And so when I talked to the podcast, this concept, he and I are talking, he said, I think it'd be a great idea as long as you're who you are. And I said, yeah, but if I'm truly who I am, I'm going to offend people. There are people all across this country who don't have the same views as I do. They don't have the same political views, money views, economic views, social views, spiritual views. They don't have the same views. I'm going to offend people. Wouldn't it be better to not be me and try to be in the middle? And he said, no one likes mediocrity. And what I've seen over the last 5 years is by being me is today I have clients whom I deeply care for who are completely opposite of me. In every way. I'm pretty conservative in my person. I have a friend of mine, a client who I deeply love. We laugh a lot together. He says, I'm your hippie client. He was a hippie in the 70s. He's so fun, so wise. And I've learned through this authenticity that people will respect you more just being yourself. Whenever I was talking to the priests about this podcast, I said, so I'm going to give examples. I'm going to give examples about fishing and hunting. And I'm probably going to talk about how I hate pineapple on pizza. And I'm probably going to talk about why I love an Android phone versus an iPhone. I think this is a smartphone and the others are dumb phones. And he said, have fun with it. And what you're going to find out is people will respect you for who you are, for being real. Because so many of us are not real. We put on this masquerade. We put on this facade. And we go out and we try to get everybody to like us. And what I've discovered in the last 5 years through hundreds of hours of recording into a microphone of my life, my views, is now I'll go to an event, I'll speak, and there'll be hundreds, if not thousands of people in the audience. And after I'm done speaking, people will line up and I'm talking to them. And they don't say things like y'all. They're not wearing jeans and a sports coat and an untucked shirt or t-shirt. They're dressed. They're totally opposite of me in many ways. They don't come from the hills of Tennessee or the swamps of South Georgia. Many times they're from big cities, which drive me crazy. But yet we have this collaboration. We begin laughing and they say, man, did you really wrestle an alligator one time? Yeah, I did. Do you really have a tractor? Yes, I do. Do you really think this way? Yes, I do. Man, I disagree with you, but I respect you. I respect the fact that you stuck to your guns for this many years. So friends, be authentic. Be authentic. The world is looking for people who are real. And we as business owners, we have such an opportunity to speak life into people, to love people, to encourage people by just being who we are. And finally, you're going to reap what you sow. You're going to reap what you sow. So cast a seed. Cast the seeds out that you want to reap. I have a garden. I love farming. My degree is horticulture from my undergrad, and I love growing things. I think it's miraculous that we can take, for example, a kernel of corn, plant it in the soil, nurture it, watch what God does through photosynthesis, and then 65, 75, 90 days later, depending on the cultivar of corn, we'll have, on average, 2 ears of corn on one stalk. I think it's miraculous that on those 2 ears, there are hundreds of kernels. And so one seed of corn will yield hundreds of kernels of corn. I think that's miraculous to me. And if we apply that to business, we can cast multiple seeds. And we know we're going to reap what we sow. That's the rules. I can't sow corn and get okra. I can't sow okra and get tomatoes. It's just not going to work. But I can sow corn and I can get hundreds of kernels off of one seed. But here's the catch. I would never reap it if I didn't sow it. Someone else is not going to sow the seed for me. It's up to me to sow the seed. My talents, my skill sets, my vision, it's up to me to cast the seed out. It's up to me to nurture that seed. Now, obviously, those around us help us. I have a team that is unbelievable. Have people that have stuck by my side. Have cheerleaders like my wife who've been behind me, just cheer me on. Justin, follow the dream. Justin, follow your dream. I have people that you'll never meet behind the scenes who have full access to my life. They see our family photos. They see good and bad. They see fun stuff. They see things probably they shouldn't see. And they take those and they craft it in a way that you see a finished product and I never even have to check it because I trust my team, people that care about me. As I sow these things out, no one else is going to do it for me. It's up to me to sow. I've got to sow. No one else is going to sow. When I sow the seed, I'm going to reap what I sow. But get this, I'm going to reap it a lot longer than when I sow it. How foolish would it be of me as a gardener to walk out and put corn in the ground and expect the very next day I'm going to walk out and harvest 2 ears of corn? It doesn't work that way. It takes time for the plant to grow. It takes some love and care for me to make sure that the raccoons don't get into the corn crop. Make sure that the wind doesn't blow over the corn. Make sure the weeds don't choke it out. It's up to me to make sure it goes forward. But I would never reap the harvest unless I placed an emphasis on that harvest. I would never reap the harvest unless I cast the seed. Whenever we launched the podcast, I had no idea where it was going to go. I just had this dream. Reading Gary Vee's book, I'm saying, I can do this. Someone said, are you going to do it to gain clients? No, not doing this to gain clients. I did it because, candidly, I wanted to write a book. I have this passion that I want to be a New York Times bestselling author. That's something near and dear to my heart. I can't wait for the day when someone can see my writing and say, Justin, we can help you reach this status. I want to do it. You say, Justin, why? Because it's something deep within my person. Someone said, you'll never amount to anything in here. And I'm going to say, I'm going to prove you wrong because I'm going to cast the seed and I'm going to surround myself with people who are better than me. I'm going to be authentic. I'm not going to be afraid of the uncertainty. I'm going to stay consistent in my message and I'm going to persevere because one day I can see it I'm recording this in the 500th episode. I can see it. Justin Goodbread, New York Times bestseller. See, I had this major goal that I wanted to accomplish. Major goal. But along this journey of the last 5 years, I've had to take bite-sized, incremental changes. Never took my eyes. My eyes not off the vision. That's the vision. But along this journey, friends, as I'm casting multiple seeds, and now my team's helping me cast seeds, as we're plowing toward this goal, we're making changes. We've had many failures, many failures. But we get up. That didn't work. Let's do this. And we're marching toward our goal. 500 episodes. If you would have asked me, Justin, you think you'll ever record 500 episodes? Ain't no way. Yet here we are. So let me ask you a question. What do you want to do? Pretty simple answer. What do you as a business owner want to do? What do you as a human want to do? What's your goal? What's holding you back? What's preventing you from moving forward? Is it fear? Is it stagnation? Is it procrastination? Is it paralysis by analysis? Is it finance? Is it your business? Is it past events? As I record episode number 500 here today, I can only aspire what the future will hold. I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Neither do you. Heaven forbid, but I could be diagnosed with cancer tomorrow. Heaven forbid, but my family dynamics could change dramatically through accidents or other things. I don't know what the future holds, but I have a dream. And as I push forward through the podcast, as I push forward to my dream, friends, the things I've learned these last 500 episodes have been impactful for me. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to start. I've got to hire some really smart people, people who care about me, the goal, and care about the things, but yet they're proficient. I realize now that success comes through perseverance. It's not short outcomes or short bursts. I've got to be consistent in my message. I can't be wishy-washy. I can't be afraid to invest my time, my talents, my resources into uncertainty, because we don't know what tomorrow holds. So therefore, I've got to invest in uncertainty. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to have fun. Talk funny like I do in the South. Give you some metaphors over and over, some examples, and I'll continue to use maybe some farming terms or hunting and fishing and boating and whatever else comes to my mind, because this is who I am. But yet I'm going to continue to cast seeds, because I realize now more than I ever have that through all these things, we reap what we sow. My challenge to you is, what's holding you back? Say, Justin, man, never thought about it. Or Justin, that's common sense things. True, it is. It's one thing to say it, friends. It's another thing to live it. And through the last 500 episodes, my faith has been tested. My perseverance has been tested. My business acumen has been tested. My social capital has been tested. So much of me has been tested. And I am more energized than ever to move forward. I can't wait for this next 500 episodes. We've got some things in the store. We're going to be changing some things up. Until then, friends, hey, y'all go out and make it. Make it a great day.